We're the last day of September here in 2021, and we're getting some early fall temperatures and early fall weather. Highs in the upper 50s here, low humidity, a nice cool breeze blowing. And today finds me in a very stony part of the country. This is the western part of Washington County, Rhode Island. We're right on the border with New London County, Connecticut. And this land is known for lots of boulders. This boulder here is about the size of a small shed, I would say. Not as big as a house, but almost as big as a house. This land is known for a lot of boulders, a lot of ledges, a lot of natural lakes, and a lot of sand deposits between all those places of interest I just mentioned. So it's a land that is not well suited for farming, and a lot of the land that I'm going to be hiking on today is owned by the state of Rhode Island. And the state of Connecticut owns a lot of the land just across the border to our west. We'll look at that map in just a minute. But this is going to be a new hike for me today. Some of the hikes on the Connecticut side I've done in past decades, but none of this area is that familiar to me in the recent past. But I am going to be spending a fair amount of time in this area this year, and hope to explore some of these hidden treasures that are unknown to me and maybe unknown to you folks. And this is going to be what's called the Deep Pond Trail, D-E-E-P, Pond Trail, and several other trails that branch off it. Let's pause for just a second here. We'll come around this boulder here, covered in rock tripe and lichens. And I got my maps right here underneath the boulder. And I'm having a hard time finding good maps available from the governmental organizations that own this land in Rhode Island. Some other organizations have attempted to map this area and done a pretty good job, including the mountain bike groups that create maps for the mountain bikers to use, as well as all trails. So where we are today is we've got Beach Pond, which straddles the border between New London County, Connecticut and Washington County, Rhode Island. And about a mile east of Beach Pond is a trail I'm going to show in black today. And it's just above the X in Exeter. And it's called the Deep Pond Trail, and it has white blazes. And it continues about a mile and a half south to what looks like Deep Pond. It's cut off by the edge of this map, but I've also got it on this other map shown right there. Just about a mile and a half south of Route 165, which runs east-west through this area. I have also traced many trails that are showing up on the mountain bike maps that may or may not be easy to follow and may or may not have markings. So this will be kind of a figure it out as I go type of hike. I've done some of the hikes right around the south end or southeast end of Beach Pond in the past, and stumbled on this Deep Pond Trail not even knowing where it went, and did not follow it that day for that reason. But I'm back and I want to find this deep pond. It looks pretty interesting on the satellite views. And if you look at the contour lines on these maps, that indicates a lot of rock outcrops in this area when you start seeing contour lines that have that kind of shape. Let's start moving. We got about 5 hours to do this hike. And as fall progresses into early winter, the greenery that's above us in the canopy of this forest is lost. And what makes these trails so beautiful during the winter months is the abundance of mountain laurel in these parks in this area. This is called the Arcadia Management Area. It's a large purchase area with tracks all over this county and the county north of here in Rhode Island. And what's called the Patchogue State Forest has a similar size on the Connecticut side. And the trails cross back and forth without interruption. So the trail system is continuous between these two states. There's even some pockets of native Rose Bay rhododendron or great rhododendron in these woods, and if we're lucky we may find some today. I don't know if we will or not. It wouldn't be out of the question. So far we've gone about a half a mile. We're on an old dirt road. You can actually drive this. There's no gate. I got my orange hat on today because bow season has started, and we'll be careful, make a little noise, make sure we don't get mistaken for a white-tailed deer today. And the mountain laurel in these particular areas of Rhode Island and Connecticut can get 25, 30 feet high sometimes. I don't often see that in the higher parts of the Appalachians in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, but around here it does. And makes for these neat tunnels, kind of like you'd find in other parts of the country with the great rhododendron. But this is all mountain laurel back here. Again, I might find a great rhododendron patch back here, but there's none advertised on any of the hiking guides. But there might be a couple hidden away anyways. It is in this area, but only in places. And meanwhile, it's been above average rainfall just about everywhere this summer and early fall. And that leads for above average mushroom crops. Every hike I've done in the last few weeks, I'm seeing mushrooms everywhere, and these guys just came up. The leaves are still kind of in the way, and they're pushing up. And I don't know my mushrooms too well. I know some of the real obvious ones like morels, but I'm not going to try to advise anybody on what to eat when it comes to mushrooms because of what can happen if you make a mistake. But if you like to learn your mushrooms, with the above average rainfall throughout much of the area I'm covering by this channel this year, this is a good year to learn them. Until the first freeze comes along, and that'll be the end of that. And hikers always beware in the fall when the acorns are dropping. These ones are quite large. You can see my thumb there for scale. Get this guy to come into focus. There we are. One of the larger acorns in this part of the country is that of the chestnut oak. Now the bur oak can also get large acorns. It doesn't grow in this immediate area. But the chestnut oak is common to the shallow acid soils of the Appalachian Mountains, and these aren't mountains in this area. They don't get over 600-700 feet high, but the soil is very similar to that of the mountains west of us here. These are foothills, but the plants are similar to the Appalachian Mountains in this county, and so is the soil, and so is the bedrock. So our chestnut oak has these leaves with a wavy edge, and unfortunately a lot of them have succumbed to gypsy moth damage in this area. So we got the sprouts trying to make another appearance, but the parent tree is long gone. There's so many oaks in this area that the gypsy moths could really inflict incredible damage to the forest in this area for the last 40-50 years. And you're often hiking through areas where there's only some mature trees. Let's go right down the trail here. We got an interesting tree here that is an oak, but it pretty much stays in the shrub form because of where it lives. And as the soil gets thinner and this bedrock ledge comes to the surface here, we're left with very little soil for a full-size tree to exist on. But there's an oak that pretty much stays in the shrub form, I'm seeing it on a lot of the hikes in this area in similar habitats. And this is called the bear oak, B-E-A-R, like Yogi Bear. But really you should be calling it B-A-R-E oak, because it grows on areas with bare rock, or sometimes in areas with very infertile soil that's sandy, that is prone to brush fires. So it's often grown where the ground has been left bare, either because of the lack of soil on these bedrock ledges, or sand deposits that are so well drained they don't hold moisture, and in a dry spell the plants become dry enough to burn. But our bear oak has a leaf, has these little points on the end. It can almost resemble that of a black oak. It's much more scrubby in form than a black oak, and the acorns are much smaller. I'm not finding acorns on any of these hikes lately. Most trees that are of the red oak variety don't get acorns every year, and I think we're in an off year for the bear oaks in this area. But the branches get scraggly, they grow sideways instead of up, and it often forms extensive mini forests on these bedrock ledges throughout the New England area and down into the Appalachian Mountains itself. And where the ground is bare enough for the sunlight to get through, this teaberry or wintergreen is very common in the Appalachian Mountains, but especially in these areas with thin soil and acid soil. It's evergreen, and has these beautiful red berries that are quite tasty. They taste like a wintergreen lifesaver. And there's hundreds and hundreds of them covering this rock ledge just below where that bear oak was growing. And if we keep turning left at every interchange from the parking area on Route 165, if you keep bearing left on the White Blaze Trail, you do come to Deep Pond. And this is undeveloped and quite scenic and quite pristine. And the water's tea-colored from the decaying oak leaves and pine needles, and creates a beautiful tea-colored water that's quite clear, and I'm sure it stays that way even after heavy rain events. There's no silt in the ground around here. This is all either sand or gravel, so the water stays clear even after heavy rain events. And I don't know how close we can get to the actual wetlands on the north or south side of this pond, but if we can, I think we're going to find some trees that are in stark contrast to the ones we've been hiking through on the way in here. There is a native cedar tree that grows in wetlands in southern New England called the Atlantic white cedar. And I've heard reports of some black spruce in some of the bogs in this Arcadia Management Area, and I don't believe I can see any from here, but we could try to get a better look if time allows and the trails allow. So let's see what we can find around the edge of Deep Pond. And then we're going to go back around and look at more of these rock ledges on the other trails that surround this area. And after leaving the shores of Deep Pond, the White Blaze Trail that led me there did not continue on in any discernible form. And with the mountain all around here, if the trail hasn't been used, it will get overgrown and become unusable. So we've come right back up to the interchange before that where we had turned left, and now we're turning right. We're on what's called the Dye Hill Trail. Let's see if we can find some of the many rock ledges that are showing up on the satellite view in this area and explore them. And this trail at this point has a white and a blue blaze. And like I said, I believe there's many unofficial trails made by the mountain bikers in this area. So we'll try to follow them with the paint blazes where necessary. And if there's one that's interesting that doesn't have blazes, I will follow it carefully, making sure I don't end up too far from a known point of reference. And as the last few clips I've just recorded without commentary show, that the scenery and greenery continue for many miles around Deep Pond. Many of these trails are blazed, some of them are not. The Mountain Bike Association shows many of the unblazed trails that I've been following the last hour here. I'm not going to chart my course because there's so many trails back here. You have to be really good at doing it yourself. I wouldn't want anybody to try to follow my course without the ability to do that themselves. I'll leave it at that. But there are well-blazed trails back here as well. Getting maps of them can prove to be a challenge. I've come off the unblazed trail to the west of Deep Pond here, one of many, and found a nice little overlook where I ate my lunch. And it's about a 40-50 foot drop off here with all kinds of boulder jumbles and interesting plants. This rock fern is common in this area because there's so many rocks. And little crags to explore with who knows what's down in there. Poisonous snakes are unheard of in this area. Otherwise, I'd be a little cautious on a south-facing bluff like this at the time of year when the snakes are going into hibernation or becoming dormant. But they're unheard of in this county and in this general area, so I'm less hesitant to explore these rock outcrops in late September. So let's poke around this rock outcrop. There's many different ways we can approach it. Let's stop for a minute and explore it from the other side. And the boulder jumbles below this cliff are amazing, and places you can crawl inside. Don't need to do that today. I'm just looking from the outside. But you can really use your imagination on some of these rocks. They're just interesting to look at. That one there almost looks like an alligator sticking his nose out of the ground, or maybe even a garter snake. So a lot of ledges back here. Let's keep looking around and see what else we can find in about the next hour. Then I got to start heading back out. But this is just a really neat place to explore if you want to find those little things that are uncharted and unknown to most people. And these unnamed trails and unofficial mountain bike trails are actually fairly well maintained back here, folks. And they're leading to all kinds of interesting rock formations west of Deep Pond. And these maps are available on all trails and on the mountain bike websites. And I've got that with me, and I'm using all the maps to figure out exactly where I'm going and what I'm looking for. But I'm finding some incredible rock formations back here that are unnamed and kind of uncharted. This guy here's got to be 80 feet high. and covered in rock tripe, and just neat to look at. You know, these are not mountains, these are hills, but the little things make it beautiful. And much to my good fortune, that 80-foot thick layer of rock with the rock tripe growing all over it, this unofficial trail actually wraps all the way around it, and I believe we're going to get a view. Let's go see what's up here. Again, this is an area you want to come if you're good at finding your own pathway on pathways that are not well mapped or thoroughly mapped. I've been using All Trails for part of this, and it's helpful, but I'm using the mountain bike website as well, and the old USGS map. Between the three of them, I'm finding my way around. I don't know if I could do it with just one, but I've had the fortune to learn orienteering back when that was the only way to explore the woods in lesser known areas, which I often do with this channel. So those skills have helped me many times finding these hidden treasures. Let's keep looking, see if we can get a view from the top of this ledge. And I believe I reached the top of the ledge that I just looked up at a few minutes ago. We got more of our bare oak, B-E-A-R, but often on these B-A-R-E rock ledges do we find the bare oak, getting plenty of sun. And the leaves could resemble that of other oaks. It's called Quercus, and the Latin name is based on the root word for holly, or ilex. I don't have it committed to memory, but these leaves do look like a holly leaf with the points on the end, and the smaller size than most oaks. So let's keep exploring these hidden treasures back here. We're kind of low on time, but we're looping around at the same time, so we're kind of on the way back while we're exploring these hidden treasures. And continuing on these mountain bike loops to the west of Deep Pond, which are pretty easy to follow, but not well marked. They do have some round paint blazes that are like from the mountain bike clubs on some of the trees, but the trails themselves are pretty easy to follow. Well, we were in oaks, bare oak and chestnut oak and black oak, red oak, white oak, mountain laurel, and all of a sudden we're in this beautiful pine, hemlock, and even Atlantic white cedar lowland here. There's actually some standing water behind me here with some Atlantic white cedar that's a little bit out of view from the camera here, and some very large white pines and hemlocks back here that look fairly healthy for this part of the country where the adelgid, the woolly adelgid, is quite common. And just in the back of these hemlock trees, out of view, is another massive rock ledge with huge piles of boulders to explore. And the hidden treasures continue on, and I'm going to have to stop at this point. I got to start heading back and stop the videoing and get the boots moving a little faster at this point in the day. But there's many more miles of trails to be seen back here, more than I could do in one afternoon. And well worthy of your exploration if you have the maps and the map reading skills to do that. There's all kinds of stuff back here and in the surrounding parks.